The morning heat in downtown, Los Angeles settled over the McLaren Performance Center as mechanics moved around with forced confidence, trying to hide their frustration. In Bay 3 sat a McLaren 765 LT Spider, its glossy carbon panels reflecting the workshop, lights like a taunt. The car had arrived with a strange electronic failure that had escalated into a full system shutdown. For 3 weeks, the best factory-trained engineers had run diagnostics, replaced sensors, updated firmware, and even contacted the manufacturer's technical division, but nothing worked. The $1.2 million machine remained as silent as a stone, refusing every attempt to revive it. By noon, tension filled the room so thick it felt like another piece of machinery. A senior engineer dropped a toolbox and muttered, "I've never seen anything like this." His colleagues exchanged helpless glances, each one carrying the weight of professional embarrassment. They were experts in performance aerodynamics, hybrid systems, and precision electronics, yet none of them could pinpoint why the supercar behaved as if its entire nervous system had collapsed. As the team prepared to run the same test for the 10th time, the garage door next door rolled open with a rattling clang. Out stepped Ava Brooks, her coveralls smudged with grease from an older Camaro she'd been working on. She ran a modest independent shop, the kind known for honesty rather than luxury, but her reputation for solving impossible mechanical mysteries stretched across the neighborhood. Hearing the constant noise and frustration from the McLaren Center had piqued her curiosity. She walked over, wiping her hands on a rag, and took in the scene with calm eyes. "You guys look like you're trying to resurrect something from the dead," she joked lightly. The engineers hesitated, unsure whether to laugh or take offense. One finally replied, "It's a McLaren, it's not responding to anything. You can't just poke around and fix it." Ava didn't argue. She stepped closer, studying the open engine bay as the lights reflected off the twin turbos and tangled electronic modules. She didn't rush, didn't blink at the complexity, and didn't touch anything until she had mentally mapped the entire layout. While the engineers watched doubtfully, she leaned in and gently nudged a small cluster of wires sitting near a custom airflow sensor that had been replaced twice already. Within seconds, she spotted the culprit, a hairline fracture on the sensor bracket, so tiny it was nearly invisible. It caused micro-vibrations that distorted airflow readings, tricking the ECU into thinking the engine was in critical failure mode. The McLaren wasn't broken. It was protecting itself from a reading that wasn't even real. Ava repaired the bracket, secured the wiring, recalibrated the airflow parameters, and rewrote a small part of the ECU processing sequence. When she stepped back and nodded, an engineer pressed the ignition. The engine roared awake instantly, loud, smooth, and alive, leaving the entire workshop stunned into silence. The owner of the McLaren, a well-known tech entrepreneur named Lucas Grant, arrived just minutes after the engine came back to life. He had flown in from San Francisco after receiving a message that his car might finally be fixed. When he stepped into the garage and heard the powerful idol of the 765 LT, he froze in disbelief. For weeks he'd been told the car was unsalvageable, that even McLaren's internal engineering team had reached a dead end. Now, standing a few feet away, he saw the supercar breathing like it had never been sick in the first place. Lucas approached Ava with a mixture of gratitude and astonishment. "You're telling me you fixed something an entire engineering division could?" he asked, still trying to wrap his mind around the situation. Ava simply shrugged, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She wasn't interested in bragging, she had only followed her instincts. The engineers gathered around, equally confused yet impressed. One of them murmured, "She saw something none of us even thought to check." Lucas, eager to test the car himself, asked Ava to join him for a test drive. The two of them rolled the McLaren out into the warm California afternoon, the carbon fiber body gleaming under the sun. As soon as Lucas eased onto the Pacific Coast Highway, the car surged forward with perfect responsiveness. Every shift was crisp, every acceleration smooth, and the turbo system delivered power without a single hiccup. Ava sat quietly, listening to the engine notes like a musician analyzing a melody. Everything sounded balanced, healthy, and strong. Lucas kept shaking his head and laughing. "I can't believe this thing was practically dead yesterday." They pushed the car along the coast, the ocean stretching endlessly beside them, while the wind rushed through the cabin. Lucas felt a sense of relief wash over him. The McLaren wasn't just a machine to him. It was a project he had dreamed about for years. Ava didn't talk much during the drive. She let the car speak for itself. When they finally turned around and headed back toward the city, Lucas knew without question that the McLaren was performing better than it ever had. The fear, frustration, and disappointment of the past weeks dissolved into pure exhilaration. When they returned to the performance center, the engineers were waiting anxiously. Lucas stepped out of the car with the excitement of someone who had witnessed a miracle. Without hesitation, he offered Ava a lucrative contract, not just to maintain his personal collection of supercars, but to become his lead technical consultant for future engineering projects. The offer was generous enough to change her entire life, but Ava smiled and turned it down gently. She loved her small garage, her freedom, and the satisfaction of solving problems no one else noticed. As she walked back to her shop, the stunned team realized they had just watched an ordinary mechanic outshine an industry. Ava didn't need fame or contracts. Her work and her quiet brilliance spoke louder than anything else. News of Ava's extraordinary fix traveled faster than she expected. By the next morning, several car enthusiasts, 2 local journalists, and even a representative from an automotive YouTube channel had gathered near her modest garage. Ava arrived holding a cup of coffee, surprised to see cameras pointed at her signboard. She wasn't used to attention. She preferred machines over crowds. But the story of a small shop mechanic saving $1 million McLaren after the experts failed had spread across Los Angeles overnight. People wanted interviews, photos, quotes, anything. Ava sighed softly. She hadn't asked for fame, she had only done her job. As she unlocked her garage, a man approached her with a polite smile. He introduced himself as Ryan Holloway, a senior engineer from a well-known electric hypercar company based in Silicon Valley. He explained that his team had been struggling with a new prototype, something experimental with hybrid turbo integration, and rumors of Ava's skill had reached them. "We thought maybe you could take a look," he said, offering her a folder containing technical schematics. Ava skimmed through the diagrams, instantly recognizing a complicated airflow logic system like the one she had corrected in the McLaren. She gestured for him to step inside. Inside her garage, surrounded by the familiar scent of engine oil and steel, Ava felt grounded again. She reviewed the design flaws in the prototype, airflow housing, and pointed out an overlooked variable that disrupted pressure balance at higher RPMs. Ryan watched with surprise as she solved in minutes what his team had been debating for weeks. He asked if she would visit their Silicon Valley test facility for a full evaluation. Ava hesitated. She wasn't eager to leave her small workshop, but she also sensed this was more than a repair job. It was an opportunity to influence real engineering progress. After a moment of thought, she agreed to visit for one day. When she arrived in Silicon Valley 2 days later, she was greeted with far more respect than she expected. Engineers crowded around her, eager to show the prototype. It resembled a futuristic hypercar, sleek and quiet, but its hybrid turbo system created unpredictable surges that threatened the entire project. Ava listened, examined, and then asked for 10 minutes alone with the machine. The team watched anxiously through the observation window as she inspected every inch of the engine bay. Eventually, she adjusted a misaligned valve, recalibrated sensor timing, and rewrote part of the predictive throttle mapping. When the prototype powered up flawlessly, the room erupted with disbelief and applause. After the successful test, the company offered Ava a high-ranking engineering position, complete with housing, benefits, and a salary that dwarfed anything she'd earned before. But Ava smiled the same calm smile she had given Lucas. She appreciated the offer, but she wasn't interested in leaving her simple garage. She preferred solving problems quietly, one machine at a time. As she headed back to Los Angeles, she realized something important. She didn't need a large company, a fancy title, or global recognition. Her gift was unique, and she wanted to use it her own way, unrestricted, independent, and true to herself.